before I go. Listen. I'm standing in the dog bed. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I decided to make another video. My arm is different because I got my very first bookish tattoo today. That's not what the video is about, so I won't talk about it in detail. We'll do that another time. Today's video is actually about the top most underrated fantasy books, in my opinion, that were released in 2023. This is a completely subjective list. These are just books that I think are very underrated. There's no like scientific method to this. They're just some books that I want to share with you guys because I think they've been missed overall. This video is sponsored by Twinkle Star. If the name isn't self-explanatory enough, Twinkle Star offers string lights and lighting accessories that are high quality and great for any occasion. They have a high focus on customer satisfaction, and right now a lot of their products are up to 50% off for the Christmas season. They have some absolutely gorgeous tree lights and outdoor lights and indoor lights just to make your life all twinkly for Christmas. So click on the link in the description to check out a full catalog of their products, and don't forget you can get up to 50% off right now. Thank you for sponsoring this video, Twinkle Star. So the criteria for this list today is essentially just books that were released in the fantasy or science fiction categories that I have not seen anyone post about. Sorry, there's something in my eye. And I'm not talking about like I've seen 1 or 2 posts. I have seen 0 posts for these on Instagram, on X. I haven't seen them featured in YouTube videos. I'm sure some of you out there have heard of these or read about them or read them, but I'm astonished. The only reason I know about some of these books is A, they arrived in the store where I work and I saw them and was like, oh, cool. B, the publisher might be someone that I follow on Instagram and they promoted it before it came out, but then once it actually came out, there was no more promotion and no one seemed to be buying it. Or lastly, I follow the author on social media and I've seen the authors talking about it. But again, no one in the real world has been talking about these books, and it is a crime. So the first book I'm going to talk about today is one that I actually just finished reading a few days ago, really. It is a novella from Tor.com. I think all my novellas are from Tor. It is The Lies of the Ajungo by Moses Osi Otomi. I remember seeing Tor post about this ages ago, mentioning that it was coming out, and I looked at it and I was like, oh, I love that cover. The premise sounds really cool. I can't wait to get this. And then I just forgot about it. I didn't put it on my wish list. I sort of forgot, and like, I just never saw anyone talk about it again. But then I was doing a book outlet haul, an online book outlet haul, and it was on there for like $7. And I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that book. But classically, as I do, I did not look at the page count before buying it and didn't know that it was a novella. And I think that is what stops a lot of people from getting into novellas, or at least like checking out cool books like this, because they do check the page count and realize that theoretically in Canada, for example, they'd be spending $27 on an 84-page book. And I get that that's insane. As much as I love Tor and novellas, and I think these books deserve a shot, I do not agree with the pricing of novellas currently in the traditional market. But as I said, I got it from Book Outlet for $7.99, so I'm happy. Anyways, the premise of this book is that there is a city in a desert called the City of Lies. The city has no water, 0. So the people are in a lot of trouble. They're really not thriving. They have little bits of water every once in a while from their leader, but there's just no water. So this young boy, who's 12, decides that like other children in the past, he's going to venture out into the desert to try to find water. He is sent with the blessing of his city, and he goes off and finds some things in the desert that he did not expect. One other important thing to mention is that everyone in this city over the age of 13 has their tongue cut out. They cannot speak anymore, and the tongues are given as an offering to people called the Ajungo in exchange for water. I did not expect such an emotionally intense, disturbing story to be packed into only 84 pages, but I loved it. The prose was fantastic, and I found the storytelling just very unique and original. It wasn't really something that I've read before. I don't want to give too much away about what happens after the first moment of the book that I've described, but I really, really, really recommend this book. Also, I was scrolling on the author's Instagram page the other day, and I got back to when he was like announcing this book, and he said that he described the vision for the cover to the cover artist as Attack on Titan, but with North African vibes. I love that. I think they nailed that. I think this cover is phenomenal. The next book on the list I did talk about recently in a video, and I actually had a few people message me directly or comment saying that they had never heard of this book and they were really excited to check it out. But I will talk about it again briefly just because I want more people to check it out. It is The Jinn-Bot of Shantiport by Samit Basu. This is an Aladdin-inspired space opera. This is the story of Lena and her brother, who is a monkey robot, who live in a dead-end spaceport on the edge of the universe, both longing for escape and adventure. They are coerced into finding a piece of technology for the resident tech billionaire of this planet. But this piece of technology can grant 3 wishes. And because of this crazy nonsense, some really interesting things happen in this book. And it's a much more modern take on the Aladdin story. Let's just say that, okay? R.R. Verdi compared this to Murderbot, which is always a good time. And Kate Elliott called it ridiculously entertaining. So on paper, this sounds fantastic, right? But I think that the reason that it just hasn't found its way onto Bookstagram or into most people's hands is because it is science fiction. And it is so much harder to sell science fiction. It is just a fact that fantasy and romance and general fiction and genres like that get so much more attention, not only from the publisher in their marketing, but from us consumers. We're out here looking at those, and science fiction gets pushed aside. As a science fiction writer myself, who queried a science fiction book for almost a year, I can tell you that it's really hard to get science fiction taken seriously. Like, I'm not gonna go into my whole querying journey right now, but the amount of agents out there that accept science fiction is almost none. It sucks. So if you haven't given science fiction a chance, I really think you should. And stories like this, where it's still fantasy, it just has science in it, I think this is a good place to start if you aren't familiar with science fiction. Let's quickly talk about another science fiction entry on this list. I'm cheating a little bit with this one because it actually did come out in 2022, towards the end of the year, but I never talked about it last year or at all this year, so I want to include it on this list. It's my list and I make the rules, okay? It's Plutoshine by Lucy Kissick. This is a really unique, incredible story of terraforming, and we've seen a lot of that set on Mars, but this is set on Pluto, obviously. It's a story about environmental impact, about trauma, about science, and about the future. The main character, Lucian, is a solar engineer who builds suns using solar mirrors to help with terraforming projects on other planets. But he is facing a saboteur who wants to destroy his project and the future of humanity. And the other character is a mute 10-year-old who survived a very traumatic event that destroyed her family on Pluto, and she is with her older brother who's trying to keep her mute. And these characters all come together, and it's sort of up to you to figure out like what their storylines have to do with each other. The reason I'm including this on my list is actually because during my querying last year, I had a chance to speak with literary agent Julie Crisp, who represents Lucy Kissick. And since the book I was writing at the time is similar to this one, we were talking about Lucy and about this book, and so I got to hear firsthand from Julie about what makes this book so special, and she said to me that it is the character development. This is an extremely character-driven science fiction story, so if you're not a fan of heavy sci-fi and you're worried that this sounds too technical for you, that's not something you have to worry about. This is a character story. And if you are a fan of science fiction, don't worry. There's still awesome space fights and stuff in here that you're gonna get, but that's not the point. This is not explosions. This is not big, heavy scientific concepts that you have to understand and it takes away from the story. No. Give this one a try if you like science fiction. If you're not a fan of science fiction, I think it's still worth it, but it might not be quite your cup of tea because it's a little more intense than Jinn-Bot of Shantiport, for example. The next book is a very special one to me. It's The Bone Roots by Gabriella Houston. Now, Gabriella is a friend of mine, as I've discussed before. She is a UK-based Polish author, and she writes sort of folktale-esque stories. She's mostly inspired by her Polish heritage. So her first book, The Second Bell, I'll just grab that for you, hold on, because I have it right here. The Second Bell is a Polish-inspired story about a striga. If you have heard of a striga before, it's probably because you've watched the Witcher TV show. One of the monsters that Geralt fights is a striga. Now this is a much more humane look at that creature. That's not the right word, but like in that show, the striga was very much like evil demon baby. But we get to explore it a lot more in The Second Bell. Now, I'm not here to talk about The Second Bell, I'm here to talk about the Bone Roots. But one thing that both of her books really focus on is motherhood. Gabriella is a mother herself, and you can totally feel that in her books. So The Bone Roots is a story about two mothers. One who bleeds into the ground, into the bone roots of the childbearing tree every year in thanks for the gift of her young child from the tree. But as the child ages, she's 15 now, she's becoming wilder, stranger, less known to her mother. And as her daughter nears the age of 16, the tree is demanding a higher price. The other mother in this story is searching for her daughter who was stolen as a baby by a fox thief. Now this mother has no idea what's happened to her child, but she thinks that she's getting closer to finding out her daughter's fate. Both of these storylines twist and turn a lot, and they're both rooted in Slavic folklore as well. This is an extremely emotional fantasy exploring dark themes, but also again themes of family and love, and Gabriella's prose is really lyrical and beautiful to read. So if you're a fan of people like Ava Reid, Catherine Arden, Hannah Witten, I would definitely check out Gabriella's writing because it's just phenomenal and she deserves more love and attention, okay? Pick up The Bone Roots and The Second Bell right now. The next book I have here just has the worst luck in the world. I have Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb, also known as Laura Lamb. The reason I say this has bad luck is because Dragonfall came out the same day as Fourth Wing earlier this year. So two relatively unknown dragon books were released on the exact same day, and you already know which one absolutely took off. So these books are not that similar. This is not a romance. It's not the same. It's not dragon riding. This is about dragon gods. Years ago, humans betrayed dragons, stealing their magic and banishing them to a forgotten land. Centuries later, the descendants of the dragons still worship them as gods, but the dragons are still alive, and they did not forget what the humans did to them. The two main characters in this story are a thief looking for revenge and a dragon in human form looking to sort of seduce, not literally, but like mentally seduce the thief to destroy all of humanity. This book is fun. I'm sorry you missed it because you were reading Fourth Wing, but maybe give another one a chance. Also, how sick is this cover? I think it is really cool. There's another dragon book that came out this year that we must talk about. It's To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Moniquel Blackgoose. So this is a fantasy story, but it is inspired by real events that happened in both Canada and the US, but primarily Canada. It is based on the lived experience of residential school survivors. So definitely a trigger warning with this book. If that's something that you are sensitive to, I would check it out and do some research before getting into this book. But I do think that she has made something very unique here. So this is the story of a young Indigenous woman who enters the colonizer-run Dragon Academy and very quickly realizes that she is completely at odds with the proper way to do things. Does that sound familiar? Residential schools? It's definitely a really interesting one. The main character finds a dragon egg, and because of that, she is enrolled in an Anglish, who could we possibly be referring to with that? An English-run school where she finds that she just like has a totally different understanding of her land's history, of her culture versus their culture, and what is thought of her own culture, of the connection between humans and dragons. It's just a really powerful book. It's very much Aragon, but make it Indigenous. The last book I want to talk about today is The Dead Take the A Train by Cassandra Khaw and Richard Kadri. This is a cosmic fantasy horror, and we just didn't think about it this year. Possibly because it looks like an urban fantasy, and Cassandra Khaw is mostly known for their horror, but this is shelved as fantasy. So I think it was just a weird mishmash of things that led to this not really being read, because it sounds really cool. I haven't read it myself yet. Also earlier this year, Cassandra Khaw did release one of my favorite books of the year, and it has been getting quite a bit of publicity, so it's not officially on this list, but I think we could all just, you know, read it again. And it's The Salt Grows Heavy, where if you've read this little novella, you will have gotten a taste of Cassandra Khaw's absolutely brutal nonsense. and this is just filled with that as well. It's set in New York City. It is about Julie, who is a coked up, burnt out 30-year-old whose only retirement plan is dying early. Julie is an amateur magician trying to make it in the magic scene of New York, and when her best friend Sarah needs help, she has a desperate power grab that sets off some events that might lead to the end of the world. So this is a wild ride is what it sounds like. I'm really excited to get into it. I'm not terribly familiar with Richard Kadri, but I'm a huge fan of Cassandra Khaw, and that's good enough for me. Again, I think this just is a stunning cover. Look at those teeth. There were actually, hello, can I be in focus? There were actually so many more books that I wanted to put into this video, but I didn't want to make it too overwhelming and too long. You've only got like 2 weeks left to read all of the books that I talked about in this video today. You have to read them by the end of the year. Sorry, it's just how it is. I don't make the rules. And don't worry, I'm going to be doing wrap-ups of my top 10 and bottom 10 reads for the year in the next couple of weeks. People have been asking, do people like my videos? My hair is just, this is not a ponytail anymore. It was at one point. Before I go. Listen. I'm standing in the dog bed. I'm okay. That only hurt a lot. Before I go, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the... Before I go, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell icon so you know when I upload new videos. I upload 3 days a week. No, I don't. I upload 2 days a week. Oh my gosh. I have a concussion. I love you guys. Goodbye.